I think the past 4 years have just been disastrous. I think on meat and potatoes, kind of kitchen table topics, the Democrats lost Americans. The inflation was just too bad. The immigration crisis had just gotten a little bit too bad. Foreign policy had spun out of control. And then on the more ideological or social issues, I think Democrats had lost the common sense. Much has been made of the transgender ideology, specifically as applied to children.
Michael Knowles went on this leftist show after Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election and absolutely destroyed him, absolutely humiliated him on his own show. This was basically Michael Knowles going into enemy territory and forcing them to admit defeat. Let's get into this clip here where Michael Knowles absolutely embarrasses this woke idiot.
Donald Trump would win the election. Well, Michael turned out to be right, and now he's here to gloat. Michael Knowles, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Alex, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for my favorite introduction I've ever heard, which is Michael was right. I want all of my appearances to begin with that phrase.
And by the way, I like your subtle branding of your cigars that you've placed.
I try, as always, for subtlety, nuance, and class, Alex. The Mayflower cigar is sitting right here, now that you mention it.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get into it. A lot of Democrats in this state were stunned that Trump won. Why do you think he did? And what do you think that says about where we're at as a country?
I think Trump is a really talented candidate. I know that there are many, even in the Republican Party, who still doubt that. But I think it's impressive when one can win a non-consecutive second term for only the second time in American history, win the highest office in the land before you've ever been elected dog catcher. He's good. He just brings in a lot of people who are not commonly on the Republican team. However, all of that said, I think the Democrats just really blew it. I think Biden also would have lost to Trump, but I think he would have had a better shot than Kamala. I think the past 4 years have just been disastrous. I think on meat and potatoes, kind of kitchen table topics, the Democrats lost Americans. The inflation was just too bad. The immigration crisis had just gotten a little bit too bad. Foreign policy had spun out of control. And then on the more ideological or social issues, I think Democrats had lost the common sense. Much has been made of the transgender ideology, specifically as applied to children. Now there's a Supreme Court case, U.S. versus Skermeti. I think Democrats really overstepped. And I think people who are center-left, more liberally minded, guys like Joe Rogan, people like J.K. Rowling, even in another country, these are people who want to vote for the left-wing party, but transing the kids was just a little bit too much. So I think the Democrats seem to lose the common sense. They lost a connection to the common people. And so as a result, Trump won not only in an electoral college landslide, but he even won for the first time in 2 decades the popular vote as a Republican.
You really think that Joe Biden in his 80s, the Joe Biden we saw on that debate stage, would do better than Kamala Harris?
Yes, Kamala's a really bad candidate. She's great behind the scenes. She works the levers of power very well. Obviously, she's had a pretty impressive political career. But people underestimate Joe Biden. I know he's got dementia. I know he's obviously in decline. Even if he had been firing on all cylinders, I think his record was just too bad probably to get reelected. But he's good at politics. This is a guy who managed to get himself elected to the Senate before he was constitutionally eligible to do it. He spent half a century in politics, got himself up to VP, was able to get elected president even after he was a cadaver by all accounts. So he's got a real talent in retail politics. Kamala just doesn't have that. She's just not likable. And so it was a mistake. Probably Democrats would have done a lot better with someone like Gretchen Whitmer, would have done a lot better with someone like Gavin Newsom. But I think some of those other Democrats thought, you know what, let's send up Kamala to be the lamb to the slaughter, and we're going to keep our powder dry for 2028.
Of course, Kamala Harris was very successful in California.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Politics, winning a lot of statewide elections here. Let's go to the cabinet, the president-elect's cabinet, filled with a lot of billionaires and Fox News hosts and contributors who are really good on TV. What should we read into how Trump plans to govern based off the team that he's assembled?
Well, I think he needs to start picking more Daily Wire hosts for his cabinet. That would be my first suggestion. But barring that, I think he's made mostly really good picks here. There were some stumbles. Obviously, Matt Gaetz was never going to make it through Senate confirmation. So President Trump let that one go. Now the Democrats are coming after Pete Hegseth. And I think Pete has a much, much stronger claim to his office than maybe even Matt Gaetz did. The knock on Pete Hegseth in general is that he's a TV host, but I think that's actually a plus. Being able to communicate, being able to speak in a manner that is concise and persuasive, I think that's good in a cabinet role, especially when you're going to be the figurehead for the American military. One of your chief jobs is just driving recruitment. I think probably Pete Hegseth has already driven an increase in recruitment and in morale. Now they're attacking him because he's been married multiple times, has a history of being a bit of a Casanova. So those are fair enough attacks, I guess. But if those attacks are going to apply to him, then good luck getting Bobby Kennedy through. And you know, I think it's rich coming from the party of Bill Clinton, the party that tells us that marriage is not a serious matter and divorce is fine and polyamory and polygamy and all the rest of it. You know, I think it's a little bit disingenuous. So I think Hegseth has a really good chance of making it through. If he does go down, I think that's going to pose a real threat to the Trump agenda because they've already got a little blood in the water with the Gaetz debacle. If Hegseth goes down too, I don't think you're going to get Bobby Kennedy through. I don't think you're going to get Tulsi Gabbard through already.
What do you guys think about Donald Trump's cabinet? I'm very curious because there's so many people who have different opinions on it. I have certain opinions on it too. You know, I think Pete Hegseth is not a bad choice. I like having hardcore people in there like that, even though he's, you know, he has opinions that I don't agree with, but I like how hardcore he is. The people that I'm really worried about are the people who actually have real influence with Donald Trump, people like Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and those people. I think, I hate saying things like this. I'm a fan of Vivek. I always have been. I'm a little bit more iffy on him recently with the immigration topics and his discussions that he's been having on social media. I think Elon Musk is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I've always thought that way. I've never, ever, and I don't know why you would ever trust a man that wants to place chips in humans' brains. Why do you trust that guy? I've said my theory on Elon Musk before. I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. I think that the government, the establishment, the people who are actually running the world understand that the people on the left wing are so cult-like that they will always do whatever the government tells them to do. They'll inject anything into their body that the government tells them to inject and all that stuff. And so they know that they'll get the chips in their brain. If the government just tells them to do it and says that Donald Trump doesn't want you to do it, and they'll just do it. They're that dumb. So they already know that. They understand that they need to have someone win over the right wing. So they had they had Elon Musk buy Twitter. They have become the right wing's golden boy. He's now the savior of the right wing, everybody thought. And now he has the favor of everybody over there, right? Of everybody on the right wing. And he's trying to put chips in people's heads. I'm trying to dance around certain terms and certain words here, but I think his job was to go win over the right wing so that not only will the left just do whatever the government says and place the chips in their head, but also the right wing will do it in what they think is a willing way because they're trying to support Elon and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of what I think Elon Musk's purpose is in this whole game. I don't think he's a right winger. I don't think he's a Christian. I don't think he should have a spot in Donald Trump's, in Donald Trump's cabinet. But I understand that it was kind of worth it for Donald Trump to promise him a spot because he does have a lot of influence on social media. So I don't know. I think that they might be wolves in sheep's clothing. I like Vivek. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now until he says other things that I really disagree with. Elon Musk, though, I am kind of worried about. I wish we had more people like Pete Hegseth in there. Just hardcore people. Even if they don't fully agree with me all the way, I just like people who are not scared to say what's on their mind and not play the politics game super hard. I think that's what Vivek does a lot of the time is he plays the politics game so much. I like people who are not afraid to speak their true thoughts on things. That's what I like.
You're seeing the intelligence community come out and say, dozens of officials warn that Tulsi is a Russian spy or something. Same kind of nonsense you saw with the 51 discredited intelligence officials who came after Trump. And then down the line, you're going to see some problems. But now broadly, I've only focused on the controversial picks. Don't forget. You've got Tulsi, you've got Bobby Kennedy, but then you've also got guys like Marco Rubio, a real establishment pick. Mm-hmm. You've got guys like Mike Waltz. You've got people like Elise Stefanik. And so and you mentioned the billionaires. Obviously, Elon Musk has a big role here. Vivek Ramaswamy is not quite a billionaire, but he's quite well off. So what do we make of it big picture? I think what we're seeing here is an acceleration of what we saw in Trump's picks in the first term, which is that this man is going to be unpredictable. He's going to pick a total dove for some positions, and he's going to pick a John Bolton for another position. And that's been a strength of his in negotiating with his adversaries in America and with America's adversaries overseas, is you can never quite tell where the guy's coming from.
Although I think we both would say that he's not going to pick John Bolton this time. After everything.
Bolton's probably had his moment in the sun
off
in the Trump
list.
circles.
The anti-Trump books don't get you there. But if Hegseth goes down, you see the leaks to the Wall Street Journal that Governor Ron DeSantis could be next. Do you think he'd be better?
I think DeSantis would be great at just about any job in the country. However, I'm a little reluctant to believe these leaks because we have to remember the fights that we're seeing politically right now are not just left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. There are big fights within the Republican Party. Joni Ernst, U.S. Senator, is one of the people holding up the Hegseth nomination. There are reports out that she wants the job for herself, so there might be a little bit of self-interest there. And there are also fights within the Trump camp. So there are factions within the Trump camp that are fighting and vying for influence. And so when I see these leaks to places like the Wall Street Journal, I wonder if it's sort of like a push-pull, supposed leaks that are really just trying to get another candidate into a decent position. That is in no way a knock on DeSantis. He's an extremely competent, extremely intelligent guy. I'm sure he'd be great in any role Trump put him in. But as of now, I think it would be a real big mistake to let Hegseth go. One, because I think Hegseth would do a great job in the position. But two, I think it would seriously jeopardize the rest of Trump's picks moving forward.
Where do you think that the Democratic Party more broadly should go from here? And who do you think would be their strongest nominee in 2028?
Woke Caesar, Gavin Newsom, your governor. I think there's no question about it. That's not a phrase of mine. I borrowed it from the great pseudonymous Twitter account Edmund Smirk, but I think it holds. Newsom is a really talented politician.
I hardcore disagree with Michael Knowles here. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say in the comments. I disagree very much so. Unless Gavin Newsom is going to adopt a lot of populist views, I think the way that the Democrats win is by just having populist views. Actually nominate a populist. It's that simple. People who say things that are popular with the 90% of Americans that are absolute idiots, extremely lazy, like I used to be back in the day. Like I've said a million times, I'll say it again. If you would have ran out, like as soon as I graduated high school, as soon as I became able to vote, if you would have said, I'm Bernie Sanders, or I'm Andrew Yang, or I'm whoever that promotes UBI, universal basic income, and says you get $2K a month for sitting at home and playing video games all day, I'm 100% voting for that person. And that's how most Americans think. People want to be lazy. They don't want to think. They don't want to work. So all the Democrats have to do is just run out somebody who, does what Joe Biden did, promise student loan forgiveness. And you don't have to deliver on it. And politicians never deliver on anything. Just promise the right things and you win. They can't even do that, though. All they focus on is trans people and all the other woke garbage that they focus on all the time. Let me know in the comments, though, what you guys think about Michael Knowles going on this show and schooling this host about Donald Trump winning and what's going to happen in the next election, what's going to happen over the next 4 years of Donald Trump's term. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole Michael Knowles versus this woke host situation.